The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake. The screen flashed. Rachel calling. Rachel's voice was a mix of desperation and apology. David, I'm so sorry to ask this, but can you cover my night shift at the pool tonight? I sighed, considering the request. All right, Rachel. Just this once. Thank you. You're a lifesaver, she replied with relief evident in her voice. After hanging up, I stretched and got out of bed. The day was mine until the night shift, so I decided to spend it lounging on my couch, mindlessly flipping through TV channels. The monotony of the shows was almost therapeutic, a stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of the city outside. As the hours ticked by, my thoughts drifted to the apartment building's underground pool. It was an odd feature for such a place. Tucked away beneath the building, it was a relic from a bygone era. The pool had seen better days, its tiles cracked and faded, and the overhead lights casting a dim, eerie glow. I had always found its location peculiar, hidden away from the world, like a secret waiting to be uncovered. Evening approached, and I prepared myself for the night shift. Grabbing my lifeguard gear, I made my way to the pool. The usually bustling area was eerily silent. It struck me as odd that the pool was empty, especially during what should have been peak hours. The stillness was unsettling. As I approached the lifeguard chair, a chill ran down my spine. There, smeared on the white surface, was a fresh streak of blood. My heart raced. I looked around, half expecting someone to jump out at me, but there was no one. I reached for my phone to call Rachel and ask if she knew anything about this. But then I remembered a conversation I overheard a few days ago. Someone mentioned that Mike had been covering the night shifts lately. Mike? That was surprising. He was one of the most reliable lifeguards I knew. Why would he leave blood on the chair? A sense of unease settled in. I had a feeling that this night was going to be anything but ordinary. With a deep breath, I wiped away the blood, trying to shake off the unease. I settled into the lifeguard chair, the weight of the night pressing down on me. My eyelids grew heavy, and despite the unsettling discovery, I drifted into a restless sleep. The distant sound of children's laughter pulled me from my slumber. I blinked, scanning the pool area. It was empty. The laughter echoed again, a haunting melody in the stillness of the night. I rubbed my eyes, convinced I was hearing things. Hours seemed to pass, and I was jolted awake once more. The old clock on the wall read 3 a.m. The memory of the eerie laughter returned, and I glanced at the chair. My heart stopped. There was more blood, fresh and glistening. A trail of wet footprints led from the pool to the chair, disappearing beneath it. I followed the trail with my eyes, and to my horror, I noticed blood dripping from the ceiling above. Swallowing hard, I climbed a nearby ladder to investigate. The sight that met my eyes will haunt me forever. Mike's lifeless body was wedged between the ceiling and a pipe, a bloody handprint smeared across his pale face. I stifled a scream, my mind racing to process the gruesome discovery. Suddenly, the sound of children giggling and splashing echoed through the room. I looked down, expecting to see someone, but the pool was empty. Panic surged through me. I began to descend the ladder when something cold and wet wrapped around my ankle. I lost my balance, crashing to the ground, my vision blurring. The last thing I remember was the silhouette of a child, standing at the edge of the pool, watching me. When I came to, the morning sun was filtering through the pool's grimy windows. Everything seemed normal, almost as if the horrors of the night had been a twisted dream. I tried to stand, my head throbbing. Desperate to leave this cursed place, I rushed to the exit, but the door wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen force was holding it shut. The familiar sound of children playing echoed once more. I turned, expecting to see nothing, but this time a dark, non-human figure rose from the pool's depths. It hovered for a moment before vanishing into thin air. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing Rachel, her face a mask of confusion. "David? What happened?" Why are you here? Mike's covering my shift today, she said, oblivious to the night's events. I stumbled out of the pool area, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. The hallway outside was bathed in the soft morning light, a stark contrast to the nightmare I had just experienced. I made my way to my apartment, each step heavy with dread. Once inside, I locked the door behind me, leaning against it for support. I tried to convince myself that it had all been a dream, a figment of my overactive imagination. But the lingering scent of chlorine on my skin and the dampness of my clothes told a different story. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. I picked it up, and my heart skipped a beat. It was a text from Mike. "David, don't trust the pool. Get out while you can." Another message followed. "It's not safe." The weight of realization hit me. Mike was trying to warn me, even after whatever had happened to him. I needed answers. A knock on my door startled me. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. 2 police officers stood outside. I opened the door, and they informed me that Mike had been found dead in the pool area. They were investigating it as a murder. The news confirmed my worst fears. I thanked the officers and closed the door, my mind made up. I couldn't stay here any longer. The memories, the horrors, the unexplained events, I had to leave them behind. Within a week, I had packed up my life and moved to a new city, far away from the cursed apartment building and its haunted underground pool. But even now, when the night is still and the world is silent, I sometimes hear the distant sound of children laughing, a chilling reminder of the nightmare I left behind. The pub's dim lights flickered as I counted my tips for the night. The coins clinked softly, but the rustling notes were what caught my attention. I had never made this much in a single night, a whopping $400. The weight of the money in my pocket was both comforting and concerning. Comforting because it was a testament to my hard work, but concerning because I had to walk 2 miles home, through a path that was notoriously dark. The pub was my sanctuary. Nestled in the heart of the boonies, it was a place where locals came to drown their sorrows or celebrate their joys. But tonight, as I stepped out, the world seemed different. The night was darker than usual. The moon, shy and new, hid behind a thick blanket of clouds, rendering the world around me almost invisible. The only source of light on my path home was a lone streetlight, standing tall about a quarter mile from the pub. Beyond that, it was a journey through an abyss. I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs, and began my walk. The gravel crunched under my feet, the only sound in the deafening silence of the night. But then, a distant hum broke the stillness. Headlights pierced the darkness, and a car approached slowly, almost cautiously. It passed by me, its windows tinted, hiding any glimpse of the driver. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself it was just a local heading home. But as I continued walking, I noticed the car had come to a halt about a quarter mile ahead, right under the solitary streetlight. It just sat there, engine idling, like a predator watching its prey. I stopped, my heart racing, and stared back, trying to decipher its intentions. Minutes felt like hours. And then, as suddenly as it had stopped, the car sped off, disappearing into the night. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. The same car, unmistakable in its eeriness, reappeared, this time driving in the opposite lane. It crawled past me, and once again, it stopped a distance away. My mind raced. Was this a game to the driver? Were they toying with me? Before I could contemplate further, the car's headlights went off, plunging the road into darkness. But the worst was yet to come. The car made a silent U-turn and began creeping towards me, its lights off, like a ghostly apparition. Panic surged through me. I was trapped. The pub was behind me, but the car stood in between. My home was still a good mile and a half away, an impossible distance to cover quickly. Without a second thought, I darted into the woods that flanked the road. The underbrush scratched at my legs, but fear propelled me forward. I found a thick bush and crouched behind it, my breath ragged, eyes straining to see through the inky blackness. Every second in hiding felt like an eternity. The woods around me seemed to come alive, whispering secrets of the night. The cold wind rustled the leaves, and every so often, an owl hooted, adding to the eerie atmosphere. But above all these natural sounds, there was another, the soft, muffled voices of men, their words indistinguishable but their intent clear. They were searching for something, or someone. Suddenly, a beam of light cut through the darkness, moving erratically, scanning the ground, the trees, the bushes. They had flashlights. My heart raced, each beat echoing loudly in my ears. I held my breath as the light came dangerously close to my hiding spot, then sighed in relief as it moved away. But the relief was short-lived. A voice, chillingly close, said, "I saw something move over here." Another voice responded, "Check it out. And remember, we just want the money." I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. They knew about the tips. But how? Had they been at the pub? Were they watching me all along? My mind raced, trying to recall any suspicious characters from the night, but the fear clouding my thoughts made it impossible. The footsteps grew closer, and I knew I couldn't stay hidden for long. Desperation fueled a sudden surge of courage. Quietly, I picked up a hefty branch lying nearby. If it came to it, I was ready to defend myself. The beam of light was now just a few feet away, its glow illuminating the ground, inching closer to my hiding spot. I tightened my grip on the branch, preparing to strike. But then, a distant sound broke the tension, a car horn, followed by the distant shout of a familiar voice. "Hey! What are you doing there?" It was my boss from the pub. He must have come looking for me after I didn't return. The flashlight's beam wavered, then turned off. The voices whispered hurriedly, and I heard the sound of footsteps retreating. I waited, not daring to move until I was sure they were gone. When I finally emerged from my hiding spot, I saw the familiar headlights of my boss's car on the road. He rushed towards me, his face etched with concern. "Are you okay? We got worried when you didn't come back. Saw that car parked on the side and thought something might have happened." Relief washed over me as I recounted the harrowing experience. My boss's face darkened with every word. "We need to report this," he said firmly. Back at the pub, the atmosphere was tense. The other servers and kitchen staff had gathered, having heard about my ordeal. Their faces reflected a mix of relief and anger. The local sheriff was called, and a report was filed. But the men, and the mysterious car, were never found. The incident changed everything. My boss, always the protective type, made it a rule that no one was to walk home alone at night. The staff rallied around me, offering support, and ensuring I never felt unsafe again. But the memories of that night haunted me. Every shadow seemed sinister, every rustle a threat. The dark mile had shown its true colors, and the terror it instilled in me was something I'd never forget. The weight of the money, the weight of that night, would forever be a reminder of the unseen dangers that lurk in the dark. The hum of the overhead lights was the only sound that broke the stillness of the night. The gas station where I worked sat on a lonely stretch of road, a beacon of fluorescent light amidst the encompassing darkness. Most nights, the silence was only punctuated by the occasional rumble of a truck or the soft chime of the door as the taxi driver wandered in for a late-night coffee fix. I had grown accustomed to the solitude, finding solace in the routine of my night shifts. I'm not an imposing figure by any means. Standing at just 5 feet 2 inches, with a face that naturally settled into a friendly smile, I was the antithesis of intimidating. But I had never felt vulnerable during my shifts. The regulars, mostly truckers and cabbies, were familiar faces, and our interactions were always cordial, if not downright friendly. One particular night, as the clock's hands inched towards midnight, I was engrossed in a conversation with Dave, one of the regular cab drivers. We often exchanged stories to pass the time, and tonight was no different. As we laughed over a particularly funny anecdote, a pair of blinding headlights pierced the darkness outside, casting an eerie glow over the store's interior. The car, a nondescript sedan, pulled into a parking spot directly in front of the store. Its floodlights remained on, shining directly into the store, turning the glass front into a shimmering barrier. I squinted against the brightness, trying to make out the driver, but the glare made it impossible. "That's odd," Dave remarked, following my gaze. "Maybe they forgot to turn off their high beams." We waited for the driver to emerge, but minutes ticked by with no movement. The car sat there, its engine purring softly, the lights continuing their relentless assault on the store. An uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. There was something off about this, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Finally, the car door creaked open, and a man stepped out. He was tall, with unkempt hair that hung in greasy strands over his forehead. His clothes were disheveled, and he moved with a jittery energy, like a marionette being controlled by an erratic puppeteer. His eyes, wide and unblinking, scanned the store before locking onto me. There was an intensity in his gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. He entered the store, the door chime announcing his arrival. As he moved through the aisles, his eyes never left mine. I tried to maintain my composure, offering him a friendly smile, but it faltered under his unwavering stare. "Can I help you with anything?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed a coffee cup and filled it, all the while keeping his eyes trained on me. The silence in the store was palpable, broken only by the soft gurgle of the coffee machine and the distant hum of the lights. Dave, sensing my discomfort, leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You okay?" I nodded, but my eyes darted towards the man, who was now approaching the counter. He placed the coffee down, his fingers twitching erratically. I rang up his purchase, trying to engage him in conversation. "Busy night?" I ventured, hoping to break the tension. He didn't reply. Instead, he reached into his pocket, producing a crumpled bill. Our fingers brushed as I took the money, and I recoiled at the coldness of his touch. It felt unnatural. Dave cleared his throat, drawing the man's attention for the first time. "Everything all right, buddy?" The man's gaze shifted between Dave and me, his expression unreadable. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke, his voice a raspy whisper. "The night is full of surprises." With that cryptic statement, he took his coffee and retreated to a corner table, but his intense stare remained fixed on me. I felt like a trapped animal, every instinct screaming at me to flee. But I was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a fear I couldn't explain. Dave slid his business card across the counter, his voice barely audible. "Call me if you need anything, okay?" I nodded, grateful for the lifeline. But as the night wore on, and the man's presence loomed ever larger, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The weight of the man's gaze was suffocating. Every time I dared to glance in his direction, I found his eyes still locked onto mine, unblinking and cold. The store's usual hum seemed to grow louder, echoing the rapid beat of my heart. Hours seemed to drag on, and the man's presence became an oppressive force in the store. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside made me jump. The once familiar surroundings of the gas station now felt alien and threatening. As closing time neared, a group of truckers entered the store. Their boisterous laughter and chatter momentarily broke the tension. I greeted them with relief, hoping their presence would deter the man. But to my horror, he simply shifted his position, moving closer to the window, still watching me intently. The truckers, sensing something amiss, exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, a burly man with a grizzled beard, approached me. "Everything okay here, miss?" I hesitated, not wanting to escalate the situation, but the fear in my eyes must have given me away. The trucker nodded, understandingly. "We'll stick around for a bit." he whispered. But even with the trucker's presence, the man outside didn't budge. He remained in his car, his silhouette illuminated by the dashboard lights, his eyes still fixed on the store. The clock ticked closer to closing time, and the truckers began to leave, casting wary glances at the man's car. I felt a rising sense of panic. I was alone again, with the man still outside. Remembering Dave's card, I fumbled in my pocket and dialed his number. The line rang once, twice, and then Dave's voice came through, sounding groggy. "Hello? Dave, it's me," I whispered, my voice trembling. "He's still here. I don't know what to do." There was a pause, and then Dave's voice, now alert, responded. "Stay put. I'm on my way." The minutes waiting for Dave felt like an eternity. Every shadow, every sound seemed to morph into a threat. But finally, the familiar headlights of Dave's cab pierced the darkness. He pulled up in front of the store, his eyes immediately locking onto the man's car. Dave entered the store, his face set in a grim line. "Let's get you out of here," he said, taking my arm. We hurried to his cab, but as we approached, the man's car engine roared to life. He began to rev it menacingly, the headlights flashing on and off in a disorienting pattern. Dave pushed me into the cab, starting it up quickly. As we sped away, the man's car followed, its headlights blinding us. The chase was harrowing, with the man's car swerving dangerously close to us multiple times. Dave's face was a mask of concentration as he maneuvered the cab through the winding roads. "Hold on," he muttered, taking a sharp turn into a narrow alley. The man's car, unable to keep up, crashed into a stack of crates at the alley's entrance. We didn't stop to check. Dave drove on until we reached my apartment. Once inside, I collapsed on the couch, the events of the night catching up to me. Dave sat beside me, his face pale. "I noticed him earlier," he admitted. "He was tailing my cab before I dropped by the gas station. I should have realized." We sat in silence, processing the night's events. The terror I felt was slowly replaced by gratitude. "Thank you," I whispered, tears forming in my eyes. Dave nodded, squeezing my hand. "Just promise me one thing," he said, his voice serious. "Find a day job." The next day, the police found the man's car abandoned in the alley. But the man was nowhere to be found. The events of that night haunted me for weeks, but with time, the memories faded. I took Dave's advice and found a new job, leaving the night shifts behind. But every time I pass by a gas station at night, I can't help but glance at the windows, half expecting to see a pair of cold, unblinking eyes staring back at me.